Glyphosate is a herbicide used to kill weeds on crops. It is now the most used chemical agricultural product ever. Despite this, there's a good chance you haven't heard of it, and the chemical giants would probably be happy if it stayed that way. Why? Well, in addition to being so extensively used, glyphosate has also proven to be highly controversial, with serious concerns being raised about its safety. There's an ongoing and heated scientific debate as to whether glyphosate is carcinogenic. While the World Health Organization has concluded that glyphosate is probably carcinogenic in humans, the European Food Safety Authority has found the opposite. At the same time, herbicides containing glyphosate act as endocrine disruptors, which means they play havoc with our hormones and can have an impact on fertility. What's more, glyphosate poses a high long-term risk to animals, including farm animals such as cows and sheep, and affects biodiversity. So if it's that harmful, why does the EU even consider extending the license for the use of glyphosate with another 15 years? To answer this question, let's first have a look at how decisions are made on this issue. Comitology is a decision-making process in which the European Council and Parliament adopt a law, including objectives and a time frame, but where more detailed measures such as lists of substances or products allowed in the EU are left to the discretion of the European Commission. Here is how it works in practice. The European Commission proposes certain measures, such as to prolong the license for the use of glyphosate. A committee, composed of experts from every EU country, vote on the proposed measures. If there is a qualified majority in favour of the Commission's proposal, the Commission is bound to go through with the measure. If there is a qualified majority against, the Commission cannot carry out the measure. If there is no qualified majority for or against, the Commission can choose either to carry out the proposed measure or submit a new version of it to the committee. The Commission should, as set out by the Lisbon Treaty, be subject to checks by the European Parliament and Council, who have a right of information and a right of scrutiny throughout the comitology process. So, back to glyphosate. The Commission made a proposal in favour of glyphosate, but this was based on a large number of unpublished studies, which were largely produced by the industry themselves. Not even the European Parliament could gain access to the documents. On top of this, more than 80% of the national experts involved in the EU's assessment of glyphosate refused to have their names disclosed to the public, thereby avoiding any assessment of possible conflicts of interest. With little power at hand, it took a lot of creativity and teamwork for this proposal to be overturned. A European-wide glyphosate campaign was initiated, calling for transparency and for putting back what the Commission considers a technical question into the hands of the citizens. Various petitions and letters to national governments against glyphosate were promoted by civil society, while the European Parliament adopted a resolution calling for strong limitations on its use. On the initiative of the Greens, 48 members of the European Parliament even took part in the MEP action, showing that MEPs have extremely high levels of glyphosate in their system, based on a urine test. The Greens' EFA Working Group on Transparency and Democracy requested to access the unpublished studies used by the Commission to assess the toxicity of glyphosate. Due to campaigns like this, a topic that not many had heard of suddenly caught the attention of the media and the larger public. The vote in the Comitology Committee was postponed twice, and in the end, no majority could be found in favour of the proposed 15-year glyphosate licence. The Commission adopted a technical extension with 18 months and is carrying out more research in the meantime. An additional assessment will be provided by the European Chemicals Agency. The work on this issue continues, and a new vote will most likely take place in 2018. By the end of the year, EFSA should also share the unpublished studies with the group of Green MEPs who requested access to them. So, what can you do? You can join the movement in your country, organised by NGOs such as GM Watch, Greenpeace or WeMove.eu, and convince your national government that human and animal health is more important than the private interests of companies. And of course, you can make sure the garden products you use do not contain any glyphosate and, whenever possible, choose to buy organic food.